Welcome to the Coach Podcast. I'm your host, Coach Keren Eldad. Settle in. We're about to make you feel really good. Welcome back to the Coach Podcast, the Coaching Masters series. I'm Coach Keren, your host. This series is about teachers, the ones who don't just know something, who are something. They've lived the lessons, they walk the walk, and they're not just here to teach concepts, but to model conviction. Today's guest is personally the most perfect example I've ever seen of this, and that is Ruthie Lindsey, a coach, author, and speaker whose work is rooted in deep compassion and radical honesty. Ruthie helps people alchemize pain into love, reconnect with and love their bodies, and become endeared to their own lives. As Leonard Cohen wrote, there's a crack in everything. That's how the light comes in. This is what you teach, Ruthie. Not that we must be unbroken to be whole, but that our brokenness is how the light entered us in the first place. Ruthie's story is one of survival, but it's more than that. You're going to hear a story of real transformation and a true transformation into pure generosity. I am so happy to have you here. Welcome, Ruthie.
Wow, thank you so much. I'm so honored to be here with you. Thank you for thinking of me and allowing me to share this space with you.
Thanks for coming all the way down from Nashville.
Oh, what a joy.
You know, Nashville and Austin are rather competitive, and for the record, I just want to say Austin is much better.
Listen, I think Austin's amazing. I used to come here all the time for work, and I haven't been here since the pandemic. So I'm really excited to be back. And
welcome back. I hope we dazzle you.
Oh, I've already dazzled. I had the sweetest night last night. Yeah, it's really precious being here. I have some really beautiful heart friends that live here, so
yes,
it's really good.
I've always said that the thing that endeared me the most to this place is the people.
Yes.
They're just unusually awesome,
it's
down to earth.
Yes.
You have no idea. It's literally like the opposite of living in New York City while still living in New York City.
Oh, wow.
You know what I mean?
Okay. I love that. I love that you're having that experience.
Speaking of people who are not what they seem, you have an extraordinary story, probably one of the most remarkable stories I've ever heard. Can you take us back to the beginning of your journey, not just the pain through the journey, but the unraveling and how it ultimately turns into the spiritual journey?
Yeah. Well, thank you. Yeah, it has been quite the journey. Sometimes I'm like, oh, this little soul signed up for some wild stuff this round. I grew up in South Louisiana. I thought for a long time all my pain started when I had just turned 17 years old. And, we're so cute not realizing so much is childhood stuff too. But I had two loving parents that did the absolute best that they could and loved me so much. And there wasn't a lot of attachment or attunement. And there's a lot of trauma that had never been looked at. And everyone was doing the best they could. And
parents were unhealed.
That's right. And there was a lot of pain. I was very attached to my brother, but that's where the main attachment came, and he's only 6 years older than me. So learning that makes so much more sense now. But I thought, everything was great. I learned how to fit in a very small box to belong, which is what we do, right? I learned how to fold this big, long body into this teeny tiny box to look a certain way, act a certain way, be seen a certain way. Every day when I'd come home, my mom would say, what did they say about you today? They say how pretty you were. What they say about your outfit? What they say about this? So I learned from the jump, my foundation was my worth, my value, how I'm seeing the world is how the most important people think of me.
Yes.
That was the message that I got from day one. So there was disordered eating very young. I learned what I needed to do to get people to like me.
Of course.
I remember in second grade being like, if I smile really big and ask people a ton of questions, they're going to love me. And on some level, as a 7-year-old, I wasn't wrong.
Yes, absolutely.
No one had to get to know me. I could just ask them a ton of questions and smile, and they'd be like, she's amazing. And they knew nothing about me. And so that's kind of what got me through a lot. And then when I just turned 17 years old, I had organized a group of friends to go to Baton Rouge, and I didn't know how to get to anywhere. No one had iPhones at this time. And so I was following a bunch of cars, and I pulled out in front of an ambulance, and he hit me and sideswiped me on my car door going about 65. So I broke a bunch of ribs, spleen ruptured, and I broke the top 2 vertebrae of my neck, died. didn't remember much about that until my
Literally
30s.
a medical death.
Yeah. And very lucky. I just came back probably after like 4 minutes, and have some really interesting memories from that now, which is really wild, which I can talk about later. But you know, back then they used wire for spinal cord fusion. So I was on life support, the whole thing. They took bone from my hip, fused it with wire, and that was the standard thing in the late 90s. And, you know, I was in the hospital on life support, the whole thing, for about a month, and then kind of went back to life as normal because I came out with a big old neck brace that I wore for about 6 months, and we didn't really talk about it. I never did therapy. I just kind of like white knuckled it and put a big smile on my face and went back to life as normal. I didn't have a lot of residual pain at the time. And I didn't have any understanding of trauma or what had happened to this sweet body. I remember becoming really, really hyper-focused, even more extreme with my disordered eating, very restrictive. And
it makes a lot of sense. Control.
So much sense. And it ended up moving more into binging later, but at the time, that was the one thing I could control. And I remember having this thought of how grateful I was because I was on life support for so long that I'd lost a lot of weight. And that was like something I was
God, that's out of The Devil Wears Prada.
Isn't that wild?
I'm one stomach flew away from my goal weight. Remember that line?
Yes.
It's horrible.
Truly, the hate I had for my body. I remember I would stand in front of an armoire with my underwear on and just pick apart every single thing with loathing for hours a day. Loathing, hatred. And I was modeled that, you know. The only reason I ever heard bodies talked about in my home is if they're skinny, pretty, fat, or ugly. And you can imagine what was the most important, right?
Of course.
And a lot of shame if you weren't skinny and pretty.
Of course.
And so I need to look a certain way, act a certain way, be a certain size, all the things. And that went on. I went to college, the whole thing. I spent, now looking back, had a big permagrin, spent a lot of time in bed. I was getting into a lot more functional freeze. I kind of stopped caring about school, but no one knew. You know, I was like pretty popular, had friends, but no one knew what was going on with me. Moved to Nashville, met my first boyfriend. We ended up getting married like 10 months after we met because we felt guilty for having sex because we were in this, you know, church world, and sweet
everything apparently is just a big sin.
Oh my gosh, sweet little earnest idiots. Just so bad, wanted to be good. And I was working at a church, so, it was like shame, chasing desire, chasing shame, chasing desire. And oh my gosh, the level of shame. I was dripping. I felt like I was the biggest fraud working at this church, having sex with someone. I mean, the stories, it's so, so earnest and blessed. Like, dear God. And about a year into our marriage, I started having debilitating pain and started going to all these different doctors. They did all these scans. There would be this black spot on the scan every time it would come back. And they'd be like, oh, everything around it looks fine. They started me on all these physical therapies. Nothing helped. So then they started me on narcotics. And I essentially went to the bed with fentanyl, with TV, and with junk food. And now looking back, doing so much unconscious work and shadow work, I'm like, there was a part of me that I was so miserable. I was in so much pain. This like shooting pain would go up my head, and I'd either feel like I was going to pass out or feel like I was going to throw up because it was so debilitating. And all of a sudden, I didn't have to show up to this life that I didn't really want to be in.
It allowed you to check out.
It allowed me to check out. I didn't have to show up to this church. I didn't believe in a lot of the things. I felt so disconnected. I didn't know what disassociation was. I was disassociated before the wreck, and then, my God, I left. Bye. I didn't want to be here, you know?
And that's what disassociation is. It is our soul screaming soul out.
Yes.
That we cannot do anything but just basically remove ourselves.
Yes.
And then the world basically conspires to help you, doesn't it?
Oh, everything. I mean, like, pick up my phone. I can leave. I don't have to be here. I can check out, you know?
We just try to check out.
Mm-hmm. And my earliest memories were with junk food in front of a TV. That's what really raised me. And so I learned to leave very, very young as a highly sensitive, highly empathic, highly porous, like, I think a lot of it was also a very dysregulated nervous system, but I could leave and not be here. Like, I remember even just looking around like, this can't be my home. Like I felt homesick here from as early as I could remember. And I didn't want to be here. So all of a sudden I had no responsibilities. No one was asking me to do anything. People wanted to take care of me.
Of course.
So that little girl that didn't get a lot of needs met was getting cared for. I didn't have to show up to a marriage that I didn't really like, you know. I mean, it was very sweet, but we were not.
But you were 4 years old, yes.
I mean, we were children
Yes.
and doing the best that we could. And as miserable as I was, there was an unconscious part of me that loved not having to be here anymore. So that went on. You know, I lived in a bed for about 7 years. And it was so heartbreaking and painful. And I got to just check out for my life. I didn't want to live. And about 5 years into it, basically my ex-mother-in-law was like, I know you've gone to so many doctors. Everything was out of pocket because it was a pre-existing injury. She's like, I will pay for you to go see this new doctor in Dallas. We went. He did it. He was like, I can't tell you what's happening with these films until I see what's under that spot. And they basically did
Shocking that finally somebody thinks
5
to
years
look.
in. 5 years in. He was like, did an x-ray, and basically they realized through this $50 x-ray that there was a wire piercing my brainstem.
My God.
And I'm the only person that's had that, and I shouldn't be alive. I shouldn't be walking. I shouldn't have brain functioning. And they were like, we have to get it out as soon as possible.
Literally all the way in your brainstem.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was so, and I was already so unwell, you know, and then now I'm like, they didn't know if I would survive a surgery, if I'd come out paralyzed, but they're like, you're a ticking time bomb right now. But insurance wouldn't cover it because it was a pre-existing injury. So my dad was coming to see me to tell me that he'd sell our farm so I could have this surgery. And on his way, he stopped to visit our Amish friends, and we don't know exactly what happened, but he fell down a flight of stairs, ended up passing from brain damage on his way. So I give you this, like, you know, brief snapshot of just how unwell I was for so long. Like, I felt like if there is something that is up there, you know, I was taught about this kind of white Jesus, then it must hate me, because I felt so abandoned by life. Even by my dad, I had a story with that. Like, he's gone, God must hate me. Like, all I wanted as a child was to be a mother. I couldn't do that either. And I just felt abandoned by life. I did not want to live. I did not want to be here. And that went on for a really, really long time. And there were little breakdowns in the midst, and then a massive breakdown happened about 7 years into that. My husband left, and I ended up getting C. diff, which was just crazy, and in and out of the hospital. And that breakdown was horrific, and I felt so much shame. You know, what are they saying about you, Ruthie? Yeah. And I'm losing my mind. I can't take care of myself. I wasn't showering. My
husband is gone.
I wanted to die.
It's literally like the Job story.
Yes. I had to move home because I couldn't take care of myself and move in with my brother.
The most humiliating thing in the world. I know that pain.
Yes. In this tiny town where everyone knows everything, and the sweet little homecoming queen who was like most popular in her class is losing her mind, losing everything. And the shame.
Yeah.
Oh, I was dripping. I felt like I was wearing a weighted blanket of shame. And that was also a really pivotal part. You know, it was so important because wanting to die, I remember my brother being like, you can lay in your bed and hurt every second of every day, and he's a physician, and, you know, we have different thoughts on a lot of things, but at the time he was like, or you can get up and learn to live and hurt and learn to serve people and be here. And I remember just being like, I want to be here and hurt, you know. And so I started weaning myself off of all these drugs.
All the drugs they were giving you, yeah.
It took me about 4 months. I did it on my own, which
Unbelievable.
now, I was on the highest level of fentanyl, morphine, hydrocodone, Ambien, Cymbalta. I had
literally,
a bag.
that's insane.
My brother, who's a physician, said if I took a third right now of what is in your system, I would have an overdose.
Me too, I would die.
Mm-hmm. And, you know, builds up for 7 years. Like,
You're like Ozzy Osbourne. It's the craziest tolerance ever.
And, you know, I was just eating junk all day.
Yeah.
Because I was in all these drugs. I was never using the restroom. Like, there's just so many things that I'm like, it is a miracle again that
Truly.
I'm still here, that my intestines didn't rupture, that I didn't overdose, that I didn't, you know, and I have so much For so long, I felt so much shame about that girl. And she, that precious girl in her bed who wanted to die every second of every day, she became my portal. She became my invitation to dive into this pain that, I was avoidant. I thought it was all physiological.
Of course.
No one could have when people try to tell me that there was more going on than just physical pain, I would want to punt them to the moon. I'm like, bitch, you get a wire in your brain and tell me that it's not, I had no understanding about the mind. I had never done therapy. That was not a thing in my family and so taboo. And I had no understanding about epigenetics. I had no understanding about childhood trauma or preverbal trauma or what that's had done in my body. Emotions were not, you could be sweet, kind, pleasant, and precious, but like anger, no. Like these other big emotions that, I'm a very emotional person.
And that's the biggest one you likely just didn't release.
Oh.
And it turned into just poison.
Totally.
Poison
Self-hatred.
all over the body. And so then we basically reach this pivotal point. I don't know if it's your brother or your understanding, but the narrative begins to change.
It
does. You
does.
change your narrative.
Yeah, I really...
Because this is what breaks us free, and people need to hear that.
Yeah.
It's not that anything physically changes.
No. I mean, and it can shift as you have a new relationship with your body and pain.
Yes.
My thought about pain has changed drastically, and I still live with a very high level of pain in my body, right? But my relationship to her has shifted so much. And this is, this is over a very long period of time. At first, it was a lot of like when I weaned off everything, it was a lot of white knuckling life, because I still didn't understand about, for so long, I hated my body because of the physical appearance. And then I believed when pain moved in that my body hated me. And so there was a very massive disconnect. Like this,
what an interesting and important thing you're saying, because one of the things that I have a gripe with are people who become very radically opposed to pain or malaise, and they essentially start saying it's just a belief, so if you believe you're suffering, you are suffering. This is ridiculous. Integration actually means that you take the parts that are suffering and you love them too, and you live with them too. When you become resistant, you actually exacerbate and perpetuate the pain.
That's right. And what we shame and hate, we're stuck with.
We're stuck with forever.
Forever.
You're literally
It's
making
driving.
there was one person who was saying to me, you only experience PMS because you believe you experience PMS. And I was like, no, honey, you're making PMS bad. And there's nothing wrong with PMS. It means my body is functioning very well. Thank you very much. It's a beautiful thing.
Yes,
exactly.
That's right. When I started doing, and this came way later, but as I started doing my own parts work and unconscious work and realizing like, because I was so identified with pain, I thought about it constantly, but I didn't know how to actually be here and feel it and be inside with it. And I just thought I am like, I built a career off of this pain story, and I was completely identified with it as someone that like, identifies as an Enneagram 4 and like lots of suffering and just want to be so unique in an individual. And then I have the craziest, most unique individual story ever. I got a lot of attention for this pain story and a lot of identity. And I thought I am this pain instead of, this pain is, it's a part of me. It sits at this table with me, but that's not who I am. She's my invitation. That's right. This body, this pain, this loss, this heartbreak, there's been a lot of death. There's been a lot of wounding, and it has become my deepest, most sacred, holy portal, inviting me in to meet these places that had such loud voices that were so hurt and longing to be witnessed, longing to be met, and I think about like that 4-year-old little girl just watching these terrifying movies because my brother was my keeper, and how scared I was and how alone I felt. Like my deepest story was I'm alone. And so learning, and obviously I have the most precious community too, but learning how to meet those younger versions of myself, the part of me with, the disordered eating part, the debilitating chronic pain part, the, highly, highly sensitive part, and all these, and the angry part, and the hurt part, and the abandoned part, and letting them have a voice and be met with so much care, the way I would treat every wounded animal that I'm constantly
Exactly.
taking into my home.
Yeah.
You know, like my partner and I giggle because like when I have anxiety parts coming up, I call it Fluffy, who's one of my favorite feral animals that I feed. And she always looks busted. Like she is like the scaredest, scrawniest, just, and I'm in love with her. And I treat her like royalty. And I'm like,
Yeah.
why would I not treat this scared little terrified animal inside of me with the
Exactly.
exact amount of love, compassion, care,
Exactly.
presence that I give Fluffy?
It's so true.
It's
And
so
you know what?
sweet.
For what it's worth, I want to tell you that I love fucked up you.
Oh,
I would
thank
absolutely
you.
despise Christian good girl you. She sounds very boring.
She was so basic.
She was so
sweet.
basic. It's funny, and we send a lot of love to her as well. And
Yes.
also, may your father's memory be a blessing.
Thank you.
But
Yeah.
really, it's truly our quirks, our imperfections, our weirdness that makes us so great.
Totally.
You know, I also had the great misfortune of growing up in the 90s with 20,000 images of supermodels blasted in
oh
my
my
face all the time.
God.
And this idea that if I'm not like Kate Moss and you can count
Right.
every vertebrae on my back, then something is off.
Yeah.
And I have to tell you, I'm very old and I have to pinch myself because I can't believe how great looking I am right now. And it has
Beautiful.
nothing to do
I
with
know.
whether or not it's perfection self or not. It's, I genuinely like
Yeah.
being here. I'm cool with
Yes.
every weird
Yes.
aspect of this freak show I get to be.
I love it. I know I giggle because I love that girl. And I'm like, we would never be friends. I could not have less in common with like 20s and 30s-year-old me on Facebook. I'm like, who? I would never
Yes.
be friends with that girl.
But you totally recognize her. And this brings me to teaching. Nobody can really teach what they don't know.
That's right.
You cannot teach
That's
self-love
right.
if you have not gone through that chasm
That's
to
right.
the other side.
That's
And
right.
we can also identify more readily
Yeah.
what's off
Yeah.
with her. And
Yeah.
isn't it true that we're always just meeting older version of
Oh
ourselves?
my God. We're all just mirrors. It's
Yeah.
like so perfect. And I
always tell people, you know, you're just looking at yourself 10 years from now.
exactly. We're all just projecting and mirroring and like
Yeah.
and it's so beautiful because, you know, the people that are drawn to my work have debilitating chronic pain, have really hated themselves, you know,
Yes.
a lot of spiritual trauma and all these things that like it's like I'm getting it's so wild. I'm not going to be a biological mother in this life and my work is so motherly.
It is.
I've learned, you know, I've actually gotten to look at my mom and say, I love that I chose you as my mother. I'm so down to be wrong about anything. And that's my philosophy. I believe that I chose her and she invited me into some of the deepest and painful, beautiful work ever
Yes.
to learn to re-mother myself.
Oh, I
and
believe that too.
to do this work. And now that's what I get to mirror
Yeah.
and model. I only offer the things that I have needed and continue to need for myself. And, you know, I think what's so beautiful about doing this work and parts work and shadow work is it's so freeing because
Yeah.
it allows us to be so human. Like my work is in no way centered on me, but I share myself.
Of course.
Because I want them to know we get to be so human here and meet these parts with so much compassion and so much care.
Yeah.
And like, I don't even say I'm on a healing journey. I always say I'm on a wholeness journey because
Yes.
I'm learning to welcome every shadowy, fucked up parts that I have felt such
Yeah.
shame, debilitating shame about. And what if I treat this part of me with like
Yeah.
the most sacred presence and kindness and generosity? And when I do that, I feel more whole. It
Absolutely.
shifts. It's like this magic woo-woo shit that's so profound and steeped in science.
It completely works. So now I want to talk about the technicality.
Yeah.
Essentially, you start to heal yourself and then you create a method or a framework for others. How does this happen? Take us through that story.
Yeah, you know, it's really interesting. A lot of the things that have happened in my life kind of, I think it's the universe that I think is so obsessed with us, letting things kind of fall into my lap. I never sought out to be a coach. That wasn't what I was seeking. And people started asking, they'd hear me speak or, you know, maybe read my book
Sure.
and started asking me to do that with them. And I remember the first person that I officially, because I was doing it all the time, right? Like I was doing it with friends and people all the time, but not as a job. And I remember offering it, and it felt like this puzzle piece that just connected, because I was sharing the things that I do for myself, that I have needed, that it has moved the needle the most for me. And that had been parts work, that had been shadow work, that had been unconscious work, that had been deep levels of meeting myself with self-compassion.
Yeah.
And so I started really noticing what was giving me my 1-degree shifts, and learning to have a new relationship with parts was groundbreaking for me.
Yeah.
It's like there was so many levels. There was the somatic level, there was the nervous system level, there was the emotional level, there was, the physical level, and there was the mindset level. And I could kind of, I think I was always a pretty intuitive person, even as a child. Like, I could tell what someone might need. And, it was wild. I could tell if someone was lying to me. I could tell. So I was able to kind of see, like, a lot of the people that were coming to me were pretty successful, a lot of times mostly women and queer men, which I'm obsessed with. Obsessed. And I could see, like, oh, okay, they've done a ton of mindset work, or they've done a ton of this, but there's like a deep lack of work around their nervous system. They don't understand why they feel really stuck, or the somatic piece. I started doing work to be trauma informed and
so
understanding.
the continuum is focusing them on the nervous system, which they're not getting elsewhere.
Totally. And I saw, for me, as I was so dysregulated, and I can still leave really quickly. I can still leave really, really quickly. Like, those, that is so deep in my brain, like from the jump. And so I can track it in other people, like, as I'm watching them.
It's so true. You get to, basically, if you recognize your neurosis, you can see them pretty fast.
Oh my God.
That's why they can't lie to us.
It's so beautiful, though.
Yeah.
It's so powerful, because I am like, I see what I have needed,
of course,
for myself, so I can track it. I can, like, so quickly. And, like, when I'm sitting across from someone, I'm just thinking, I could never be the woman that's sitting across from them today if I hadn't lived through all of these things and what you're going through. And this is not the end of our story. And, and that feels so beautiful and so hopeful. We get to be in the messy middle until we take our last breath. Like, we're never arriving.
No, you'll
we're
never
so
get it done.
Cute thinking
you'll never get it done. You'll never get it wrong.
That's right.
It's beautiful, isn't it?
And we're right on freaking time.
Yes, of course.
Like, if I believed that I was falling short because I lived in a bed till I was 33 and I was a shit show for a really long time, like, how heartbreaking if I thought that was it and that I'd missed my chance.
I know. What a bummer.
I'm 45 years old. I feel like I am just starting. Yeah. I feel like I know less and know more than I ever have. The more I learn, the more I'm like, I don't have a fucking clue.
It's so funny. I keep remembering, because I'm on book tour right now with my new book, Gilded. There was a moment when I was in my early 30s, and I was so depressed about all the terrible, terrible choices I'd made in my life, out of a place of, like you, just trying to conform. And I thought of taking my own life. And to this day, I keep thinking, man, am I glad I didn't do that, because this is so great.
Yes, I'm so glad you're still here.
I'm so glad I'm still here, too.
Yes.
That would have been a great loss.
Oh, it would be a monumental loss.
For me, because this is awesome.
For all of us,
This brings me to something that was also revealed to me only in the transformation, which is the spiritual. What is the role of the spiritual in your work?
It's been so interesting. Like, in my teen years and through my 20s, I was very embedded in the church, and it brought me a lot of, kind of, for me, a sense of safety, because there was a lot of absolutes, and this is going to save you, and this is going to, make you okay, basically. And so hook, line, and sinker, I was a part of a church that told me I was a depraved, wretched soul. Their tagline in this denomination is, you are more broken, sinful, and wretched than you can ever imagine, but you're more loved and cared for by Jesus than you could ever dream. That's their, like, baseline.
That doesn't make any sense.
It's so upside down, backwards, fucked up. And we sing hymns about being broken, depraved, like, that was, and it fit the narrative I already had. So I already felt like I was broken and something was wrong with me. Sure. And so all of a sudden I'm a part of this church, and it says God believes that too. And that's why you need this thing outside of you to make you okay. And, I love Richard Rohr. He was like kind of my toe back into spirituality when I was like if there is a God, fuck that dude, because this is insane. That's really how I felt. Like, I felt so abandoned by God, by life, by whatever, might be out there. And then I was like, I don't believe there's anything out there, which I am like the most, like, it was a protective measure, but it was what I was taught I had to throw out. I had to completely move into, Richard Rohr talks about order, disorder, reorder. Like, I'd been in this very rigid order.
You were breaking it apart, of course.
And I moved into the chaos of disorder, where I had to throw the baby out with the bathwater, and that was my journey, and it was an important piece of the journey. I am actually so grateful for that.
Because otherwise you never make your peace with God. Of course, what this reminds me of.
Tell me.
The great Lieutenant Dan. Lieutenant Dan in Forrest Gump. He has that complete meltdown in that scene when they are basically at sea and there's a storm, and he says, is this the best you've got? And he's defying God. And he finally makes peace with God.
Yeah.
And everything starts to change.
That's right.
You have to disorder before you reorder.
That's right.
I always tell people when they begin coaching, just so you know, this is going to get shaky.
It's going to get real.
And if it doesn't get shaky, I'm going to see you again.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
That's right. And it's a part of it. It's like we have to do that deep. We have to question everything. We don't have to, because everyone doesn't,
Exactly. Like I said, we'll see you again. Not a problem.
Yeah.
You can lose it now or later.
Yeah. And, I am so grateful because it allowed me the space to like actually find something deeper within me.
Yeah.
Like now, through a lot of work, there was also a season where I worked with a shaman and I experienced plant medicine for the first time. And I had an experience with that, doesn't necessarily fit for me today. And it cracked open a lot of old stories in me. It was actually one of my first tastes in like, I am so beloved. I am so treasured. And God, universe, whatever someone needs to call it, who freaking cares, right? Whatever is out there that's so much bigger than us, that loves us, it's always calling us home to this remembering. And I love the journey of like, everything's unlearning and just a remembering. And I think, I've had visions. I'm a very visual person of like seeing that version of me in that bed, having nervous breakdowns, because there was way more than one, wanting to die, on all these drugs, not being able to sleep, feeling so alone. And I've gotten to go back into those visuals of seeing myself losing it, and I'll just see so much love. I see, my dad in that bed with me. I see Mother Mary. I see love. I see so much care. I see so much, my dear friend that was killed by a drunk driver. Like, they're all there with me. I couldn't see it. I was under the illusion of separation. I felt so disconnected, and yet that room was filled with so much love and so much light that was always guiding me and protecting me and holding me and calling me home, and I believe we all have that. We just come here and forget. And so that's why this is all the remembering, and that gets to play out whatever works best for you. It gets to look, but
that's what we came here to do.
Isn't
that what you want people to know? Because I feel that every time you speak, I think that's what you want them to know.
Yes.
You are loved and you are treasured, and God would never condemn you.
100%. And seeing people's wholeness, right? I think that is like when they can't see it yet, like remembering my own, I can only offer what I do for myself. So remembering my own wholeness and the parts that I have felt the most debilitating shame, where I just wanted to crawl in a ball and hide and die. Like, that version of me is so worthy of unconditional love. It's so treasured. It's so welcomed. It's so needed, because she's my portal. She's calling me in to remember my wholeness, to remember the love that I am. And I can only offer that when I do this work for myself. And it's the greatest privilege. We have the greatest job.
Oh, it's the best job on the planet.
If I could tell Ruthie Lindsey that was in her bed wanting to die, that she would get to live this life with this partner, with these animals, with these clients, and do this work, you could not.
She'd go running. But the only thing is, I wanted to give everybody a spoiler alert, because I always tell them this is the best job on the planet, but unfortunately, the price of entry is suffering.
It's no joke.
It's just the way it is, man.
And my favorite
You have to be
people-
willing to be super brave with your life and die to come out the other side.
It is.
Gosh, it is such a glorious honor to have had you here.
Oh,
What is lighting
thank
you up right
you.
now, Ruthie?
Oh my gosh. You know, it's the sweetest, simplest things.
Like
It's
fluffy?
Like fluffy, like my little fern walks in the woods, playing with my favorite 3-year-old, sitting with my husband, fiance. We call each other husband and wife. We're not married yet.
That's okay. I felt like I was married to Ryan when I met him. It took him a little longer to realize.
Yeah, he had to catch up. But it's like things that a younger version of me would say that's the most boring. It's watching our native plants. Like literally I go outside and I watch all the different life that's coming onto these native plants that we've like really intentionally taken care of with our yard, and watching the bees and the wasps and it brings me more peace and more joy sitting on my porch with these feral cats that will let me pet them. Like it's the simplest things. And I'm like, that is of service to the planet. Me feeling so filled up by the simplest, sweetest things. We feed 9,000 birds. Like, oh my God.
Absolutely.
Watching them
Amazing.
brings me so much joy and so much presence and gratitude.
This is the responsibility, is
Yeah.
go and live a good life.
Yeah.
Where can people, and where should people check you out in order to really start to become acquainted with your work?
So my favorite thing I do probably is my Substack. It's
Awesome.
Ruthie Lindsey is spelled with the EY, and it's called Love's Invitation.
We'll link that in the show notes
Beautiful.
as well.
And then I have an Instagram. It's just Ruthie Lindsey. And those are like the main ways that I am, I lead workshops, I lead retreats. I work one-on-one with women usually for 6 months.
I love
And
it.
it's a very, I don't take a ton of clients at a time because we go all in.
Same
and I am
these.
walking
Yeah.
beside you. There is zero hierarchy
Yeah.
in the work that we do. We are side by side holding hands, and I just get to mirror
Yeah.
your divinity, your wholeness, your worthiness, your goodness, because you just fucking exist. Period. End of story.
Yes.
You are
You are a true teacher. And I say that
thank
because I am
you.
a true teacher.
Yes, you are.
A lot of people
you.
love no disrespect to coaching firm thing,
Yeah.
but if we're going to do this, we're going to do it right.
And you have to live it.
I can't
You
thank
know?
you enough, Ruthie.
Thank
This is the kind of
you.
conversation that is going to stay with me, not just today, but is going to stay with me for the rest of my life.
Thank
And I know,
you.
dear listener, that it will stay with you for the rest of your life. I always say this to people, but I really mean it with you. May your life be blessed with ease.
Thank you.
If
Thank
you're
you so
listening
much.
and you're still feeling pain, physical, emotional, or spiritual, I hope that today's episode was a reminder that you don't have to be on the other side
Yeah.
to begin to heal. You have to just be willing to come home to yourself. May your life be blessed with ease. Thank you so much for listening. We hope to see you on the next episode of Coaching Masters.